Ryan here from Football Training Solutions, and in today's video I wanted to go over a few of the more common mistakes that I see in my weight room with my athletes performing the back squat and ways that you can help correct those errors. So with the first one that I see all the time, heels coming up off the ground during the squat. So as your athlete's squatting, you may notice when he gets to a certain depth, his heels start to come up off the ground. So to fix this, you just want to ask your athlete to stop a little bit higher until he can keep his whole foot on the ground. And then, usually with loading that weight and working through the range of motion they can control without their heels coming up off the ground, they'll be able to sit lower and lower each time. So just give it some time, ask them to stop a little bit higher, and you should be able to work that out pretty quickly. With the next one, this one's usually an overcorrection of the first one. Now they'll pick their toes up off the ground and they'll be sitting way back on their heels. So now they've corrected their heels coming off the ground and they can keep their heels on the ground, but they're picking up the whole front of their foot. We want to keep their whole foot on the ground, so just ask them to push their big toe into the ground and then keep their heel on the ground, and that should take care of that mistake. Next one, staying a little too upright and pushing the knees forward without bringing the hips back a little bit from the start of the squat. So when you start your squat, you want to have your athletes initiate the movement by pushing their hips back. In this video, my hips aren't being pushed back very much, and instead I'm pushing my knees forward and staying very upright. And I've also got a bit of hyperextension in my back because I'm trying to stay so upright. So to correct that, from the start of the movement, you just ask your athletes to push their hips back just a little bit, and then they can start to sit down from there, and that should put them in a good position to complete their squat. Another one I see all the time is more of an RDL good morning kind of motion, where they're coming up. As they stand up out of their squat, they're pushing their hips way back, bringing their torso close to parallel to the ground, and then finishing that squat by pulling their chest up, just like a good morning. So usually the issue here is that the weight is too heavy for them. Squat down looks good. As soon as they start standing up, they shoot their hips back, bringing their chest forward to the ground, and then finishing a more of a good morning. So usually the best way to correct it is to take some weight off. You can also cue them to keep their hips, instead of out here, underneath their chest, and then have them keep their chest up tall, and that may help. But again, usually it's because they're not strong enough to finish the lift, or to correctly finish the lift. So the best way to correct this would be to take some weight off until the position improves. Now the next one, bouncing out of the bottom and letting the chest fall, and this brings the athlete into a rounded back position, which is unsafe and inefficient. So you want to make sure that the athlete keeps his chest up the whole time, and you can also ask him to slow down the descent of his squat and really control the movement. That way he can keep a nice flat back. And lastly here is the butt wink. As you can see, as I went down lower into my squat, my lower back started to round a bit instead of staying flat. As you can see, through most of the squat, going down, back's flat, back's flat, back's flat, right around there it starts to round. So now my butt's going down, we call it a butt wink, and then as I stand up, I'm extending through my spine to bring my butt back up. So usually this is a range of motion issue, so just ask your athlete to stop at the point, or ask him to stop just an inch higher. So you can have him stop higher and higher until you find the spot where it starts to round, and then have him go just to that depth and back up. And then over time you should be able to loosen up the hips a little bit and sink into a lower squat. But to keep the lower back safe, you want to make sure that the back stays flat the entire time, so really make sure to stop that athlete in a position where you can control that flat back before going deeper or worrying about depth. Now another one that I see all the time, feet too wide. A lot of my guys want to keep their feet way outside of their hips, way outside of their shoulders. Now, if the athlete can keep his knees right on top of his feet, then it may not be the greatest position, but at least it won't be as unsafe. I would still recommend bringing the feet inside, but this knee may actually be okay in this video. My right knee here is definitely inside of my foot. It's not on top of my foot. So this puts a lot of undue stress on that knee, so we want to make sure that the knee stays right on top of the foot as you're squatting. So in this case, I would just recommend that you ask your athlete to bring his feet in a little bit closer together. That way the knees can stay stacked right on top of the feet. Next one happens a lot. Knees are inside of the feet during the whole squat. So now you can see my feet are a little bit closer, but my knees are still inside of my feet. Again, puts a lot of undue stress on the knees. So to cue this, just ask your athlete to keep his knee right on top of his foot. So in this case, push the knees out just a little bit. And you also want to cue the athlete to take, or to point the middle of his kneecap right at the point of his shoe. And that should help hold the feet, or hold the knees right on top of the feet. Some supplemental exercises that you can use to correct this are for hip strength, so glute strength. If you strengthen those glutes, they'll be able to hold the knees in the correct position over the feet. So you can do glute bridges, hip thrusts, things of that nature to go ahead and correct that. Now another one that happens a lot, it will never be as pronounced as this, or I shouldn't say never, most of the time it won't be as pronounced as this, but a rotation of the hips, which pushes one knee inside of the foot. Again, undue stresses here just increases the risk of injury out on the field, because if your athlete is used to having his knee, losing control at the hip, having his knees come inside of his feet when he makes cuts, when he lands from jumps, eventually that may lead to an ACL tear or another kind of knee injury. So we really want to make sure the knees stay out on top of the foot. In this example, the reason this happens is at the hip, so we really need to strengthen the glutes, make sure the athlete's staying tight throughout the abs. You can throw in supplemental ab stability exercises, supplemental glute strength exercises. And to cue this, again, just ask your athlete to make sure to squeeze his abs, brace his abs just like someone was trying to punch him, and then make sure that the knees are out right on top of the foot and kneecap is pointing right at the point of the shoe. Next example, again, happens a lot, usually not this pronounced, but there'll be a shift as your athlete stands up, which puts one knee usually outside of the foot and then one knee inside of the base of the foot. So to correct this, same exact thing as the last example. Tighten the abs as if they're bracing to be punched. Glute strength, supplemental exercises, core stability, supplemental exercises, and then you can cue them to keep their knees out right on top of their feet, kneecaps pointed at the point of their shoe. And you can also slow down the tempo a bit and see if that gets rid of the issue. It could also be that the weight's too heavy, so take the weight down. Using a combination of all of those things should help correct this. Next one. On the way down it looked good. On the way up, the knees shot in towards each other. Again, same reasons as all the others. We want to keep the knees out right on top of the foot. So to cue this, knees out, kneecap pointed right at the point of the shoe the whole time. You'll want to throw in glute strength exercises for this issue. So make sure the glutes are nice and strong and they can hold that correct position during the squat. And then again, you can see right there during the whole squat, knees were in. So slow down the tempo, take the weight off, Keep the knees out, keep the kneecaps pointed right at the tip of the shoe. So that's it for this video. Hope it helped, and I'll see you next time.